Yes, electric cars are becoming incredibly quick, and one lap or maybe even two is incredible, but then you gotta plug it in. The Apex AP-0 is definitely another car that you've never heard of. It's going to be one of those ones that you're going to want to pay attention to. You see, everything in the automobile industry is heading towards electrification. Trucks, vans, transports, cars, but so are sports cars. We've seen all sorts of hypercars that are at the other realm, that are crazy fast. 2,000 horsepower seems to be that magic mark. It's not realistic. It's incredibly unattainable. Not only that, what does that hold for the more common sports car? Right now, going to a track day is very much dominated by the same types of cars, Miatas and Beamers and Corvettes and all the same type of gas automobiles that you always see. The reason is that these cars are incredibly efficient using their combustion engines to get a lot of fun per mile. Electric cars going full chat don't last very long. The energy gets used up and the batteries don't have the long-term capacity to deal with the amount of power that they put out to the motors. Yes, electric cars are becoming incredibly quick, and one lap or maybe even two is incredible, but then you gotta plug it in. The Apex AP-0 is another type of animal. I saw Tiger. It's trying to be a car that you can use the track continuously while being quick and enjoying it for more than just a lap. The idea behind the AP-0 is to have a track car that's not just fast, but usable repetitively. We're getting onto that word efficiency. Although that term is thrown around when we talk about coefficient drag and fuel mileage, it's not really talked about in the sense that let's get the most absolute performance. How do we get there? Simple, weight. From the dawn of cars and sports cars, weight has always been the utmost concern, and Colin Chapman has always been touted as that person who kind of has spearheaded lightness, but it's not just him. The idea that you want less weight transfer and less weight to carry around the road or the track means that overall you become more efficient. On the track, it's so much more important. The idea that weight can transfer with every single movement, from steering input to acceleration and deceleration. You are moving mass across all four tires. The ability to manage that mass as a driver, the ability to plant that mass to the pavement in terms of traction, that's what gets the lap times. That's what means efficiency. What does all this have to do with the Apex AP-0? Simple. The lowest weight electric sports car to date. How do you achieve that? Looking at the materials, you can see that there's a lot of carbon fiber. The batteries are efficient, placed low in the body as always to get that low center of mass, but there's a lot more racing tech going on here. This car has a total weight of 2,645 pounds. That is incredibly light for an electric car. Did I mention that it has 650 horsepower? 2 electric motors. You don't need 4, that's just more weight. There's not necessarily anything new here, it's just more efficient. You've got center locking wheels, very minimalistic interior, all the materials and all the engineering is meant to be light. The suspension, for example, is racing derived. It's a push rod suspension. There's no need for a giant wing or giant spoiler because it's actually got a really low ride height of only 3.7 inches off the ground, which is incredibly low, but it provides that massive suction effect under the car and a massive diffuser to accelerate the air going out. Low pressure under the car, high pressure pushing it down. It's just an efficient way of designing the car. Speaking of the design, it is definitely unique looking. I absolutely love the rear taillights. They are giant and swooping and just, you're not going to confuse the back of this car with anything else out there. Speaking of which, you're only going to see the back of this car because, as all electric cars seem to do these days, it's incredibly quick. This one, 2.3 seconds 0 to 60. Incredibly fast. The design of the car, overall, I really like. And it's funny because the designer talks about how it's been influenced by a dragon type of theme. That's just ridiculous. I don't care what you hung on the wall to motivate yourself. It's a good looking car. You did great. Awesome. It's edgy, sleek. You can tell that it's been shaped for how the air flows around it. I really appreciate that designers put effort into headlights. The idea that the LEDs in the headlight swoop in and around. It's a very simple programming of how lights just come on in sequence, including the signal lights and day running lights, but that little flow is a detail that I specifically like, and it just adds to the experience of how a car runs, looks, works. Apex has its eye on the future because this car is also autonomous ready to the point where it could drive itself one day. It has a LiDAR type scanner on top, which, you know what, I don't really care what that means. This is not a car that I would want to drive autonomously, but it's nice to know that it's out there. This car excites me because it's still focused on that enthusiast type of car racing and track racing, and that still needs to exist. Sure, as I mentioned, there's insane hypercars, but they're not as accessible. Not that this one is either. Approximately $250,000 is nothing to scoff at. It is more attainable than a lot of electric hypercars out there, but $250,000 is still a lot of money. In this case though, we've got a new manufacturer where it does look like you're gonna get what you pay for.